They told me I was invited to Thanksgiving, but I noticed my name was missing from the family group photo. At first, I thought it was an accident. My brother's smile filled every frame, while mine was cropped out like I didn't belong. I brushed it off, hoping for peace. But during dinner, I saw the place card where my name should have been, just the word guest. My mother smiled as if nothing was wrong, and my father carved the turkey without looking at me. That was the moment I realized this wasn't an oversight. It was a plan. Thanksgiving morning smelled of cinnamon and effort. My parents had been planning for weeks, not just the meal, but the image of the meal. On TikTok, a video had already gone up. Slow pans of the golden turkey, the polished silver, the wine glasses aligned like soldiers. The caption read, "Perfect family goals. Blessed fought family first." I watched it on my phone while standing in the driveway. Lily's hand curled inside mine and felt my stomach tighten. I knew before stepping inside that the perfect family didn't include me. My brother's grin filled the frames, my parents beamed, cousins lifted their glasses. My daughter's curls and my own face had been cut away like clutter on the edge of a photograph. The video looped and the words in bold said, "The whole family together." I wanted to laugh, but it lodged in my throat. Inside, everything glimmered. My mother's tablecloth was the color of champagne, the kind of expensive fabric she saved for guests she respected. My father adjusted the lighting so the chandelier reflected just enough sparkle to look expensive, but not gaudy. Ethan, my brother, was already posing in the living room, one arm around Dad, holding his wine like it was a trophy. "Smile," Mom chirped as if the camera was another guest of honor. I guided Lily to a corner seat. She looked up at the framed photographs covering the wall. Ethan in his football uniform, Ethan at graduation, Ethan with my parents on a beach trip I had not been invited to. My own photographs were either missing or buried low, faded to sepia. When Mom spotted me, she put her hand over her heart like she had just remembered an appointment. "Oh, Claire, you made it. You look rested." Her words fell like raindrops that carried more dust than water. I murmured thanks, knowing well that rested meant less of a disappointment than usual. I reached for Lily's coat to hang it, noticing a small card at her place setting. It read, "Lily, special guest." My daughter smiled at the word special. My heart crumpled at the word guest. Dinner rolled forward in a rhythm rehearsed many times. Dad announced the turkey like an award. Ethan carved jokes sharper than knives. Mom floated in and out with compliments she pretended were kindness. Somewhere between the sweet potatoes and the cranberry sauce, my phone buzzed. In the family group chat, a new meme had appeared. It was a cartoon turkey with the caption, "Don't be like Claire, always bitter, never sweet." Hearts and laughing emojis followed from aunts, cousins, even my mother. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. I slipped my phone back, pretending not to care, and chewed on a dry bite of turkey. But the taste was ash. Across the table, Ethan winked at me like he'd scored another point in a game only he was playing. Later, as dishes clinked in the sink and conversations hummed, Mom leaned close and pressed her phone into my palm. "Here," she whispered. "I saw this article online. It might help you." I opened it. The title, 10 Tips to Stop Feeling Jealous of Successful Siblings. She smiled like she had given me a gift. "It's just something to think about, honey." I felt Lily's hand tug at mine. "Mom, can I have more pie?" she asked. Her voice, innocent and small, tethered me to the ground before my rage could lift me into something reckless. I kissed her hair and nodded, forcing my lips into a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Around us, laughter grew louder, sharper, almost metallic. Ethan slapped Dad on the back, making him spill a little wine. Mom laughed too loudly at something that wasn't funny. I felt myself shrinking, the room pressing inward, the chandelier's glow too bright. That night, after everyone left, I sat in my car outside my apartment scrolling through TikTok again. The video was climbing, thousands of likes, hundreds of comments. Wish my family was this close. Dream family vibes. Literal goals. Each word tightened around me like a rope. The truth was simple. I had been erased, not forgotten, not overlooked. Erased. I closed the app and looked at Lily, asleep in the back seat, her hands curled into fists around her stuffed rabbit. For her, I wanted to believe in family. For me, I knew better. But somewhere in the back of my mind, a whisper stirred. There was one photograph, one frame that had never made it onto TikTok. I had seen it earlier, tucked at the edge of the table, flipped face down as if hiding. My pulse quickened, not knowing why. Perhaps it was nothing. Perhaps it was everything. And I thought, not for the first time, that sometimes the most dangerous secrets aren't the ones erased, but the ones hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to surface. By the second day of Thanksgiving weekend, my parents had moved the gathering from the dining room to the living room. They wanted to connect with the community, which was code for live streaming the event on TikTok. Ethan had convinced them it would make the family look modern, approachable, worthy of admiration. "Everyone loves a wholesome family," he said, adjusting his shirt collar in front of the phone's camera. When the stream went live, the comments poured in like confetti. "Perfect holiday vibes!" "Family goals?" "This is straight out of a Hallmark movie." My mother glowed under the ring light. My father chuckled as if rehearsed. I hovered near the edge of the couch, making sure Lily had a plate of food balanced on her knees. I could see myself in the corner of the frame, half shadowed, half erased. Each time I shifted closer, Ethan shifted too, blocking me from the lens with a calculated ease. At one point, he leaned toward me, smile fixed for the audience, and muttered under his breath, "Careful, sis. Don't ruin the vibe. You always do." His words melted into the background laughter, but they landed on me like shards of glass. I forced a smile, pretending to sip from my glass of water. "Claire," my mother called, loud enough for the mic to pick up. "Maybe you could take Lily into the kitchen? The kids are getting restless." I glanced at my daughter, quiet, obedient, no trouble at all. Still, I obeyed, walking out of frame. The comments rolled faster now. Such a close family. So supportive of each other. My throat tightened. They couldn't see me, but thousands of strangers were clapping for the image my family projected. What I didn't know then was that someone was recording. By the next morning, a clip had surfaced on Reddit. It wasn't the polished live stream, but a shaky screen recording where the edges of the truth bled through. Ethan's smirk, the way he leaned in to whisper, the awkward shuffle as I disappeared from view. The caption read, "Notice how the sister gets erased? Kinda creepy." The post exploded overnight, crossing platforms, each share peeling back another layer of the facade. I sat on my couch, scrolling through comments, heart thudding in my ears. "She looks like the scapegoat. Reminds me of my family. This is painful to watch." For the first time, strangers saw me. Not the version cropped out, not the guest, but the woman silently enduring humiliation. Lily, munching on cereal beside me, peeked at my phone. "Mom, why are they talking about you?" she asked. Her small voice carried no judgment, only curiosity, but it twisted inside me all the same. "It's nothing, sweetheart," I said, kissing her hair, but my hands trembled too much to hold the spoon steady. That night, another notification pinged. A comment buried in the Reddit thread, anonymous, written in a tone too precise to be casual. "Check the records. Her daughter's inheritance fund doesn't exist anymore." I froze. My pulse stuttered. "Inheritance fund." The words glared back at me like headlights on a dark road. I thought of the day my grandmother died, of the quiet conversation she'd had with me weeks before, promising she had set something aside for Lily, college, security, freedom. "No one can take this from her," she'd said, her frail hand pressing mine. After the funeral, my parents had handled the paperwork. They said everything was in order. I trusted them because I wanted to believe, even when I shouldn't have. Now the seed of doubt cracked open in my chest. I scrolled through the comments again, searching for clues, but the anonymous account had no history, no links. Just that single, surgical revelation. My phone buzzed again with new notifications. Likes, retweets, stitches on TikTok where people speculated about my family dynamic. Some called it sibling rivalry. Others named it abuse. A few dismissed it entirely. "She's probably just jealous." I wanted to throw the phone across the room, but I couldn't look away. It was as if the world had been invited into my private nightmare, and instead of turning away, they were passing judgment, dissecting every frame of my humiliation. I leaned back, pressing my palms over my eyes. The room spun. I couldn't breathe. Lily's laughter floated from the bedroom where she was playing with her dolls, soft and untouched by betrayal. She didn't know her future might have been stolen before it even began. I remembered my father's words at dinner. "This isn't good for everyone." My mother's smile as she pressed that article into my hands. It's just something to think about. Ethan's whisper. You always ruin things. And now this comment, cold, anonymous, precise. Somewhere, someone knew something, and I hadn't even begun to uncover how deep the rot went. The anonymous comment refused to leave my mind. It shadowed every breath, every glance at my daughter's face. That night, after Lily was asleep, I opened my laptop and dug into the financial portal my parents had once mentioned, the one they claimed managed the fund my grandmother had left behind. At first, I couldn't remember the login, but then it came back in a rush of muscle memory, a password I had scribbled on the back of an old grocery list years ago. The screen loaded slowly as if resisting me. When the numbers appeared, my chest caved. The balance was nearly empty. A series of withdrawals, each larger than the last, bled across the screen. The final note on one transaction made my throat close. Seed funding. Ethan Development LLC. My hands shook as I scrolled further. The fund that was supposed to carry Lily into college, into a life with more choices than mine, had been siphoned into my brother's failed startup. My grandmother's promise had been rewritten into a debt I hadn't agreed to. I dialed my parents' number before I could think. My father answered, his voice calm, unbothered, the same tone he used when explaining away childhood bruises or disappointments. Claire, sweetheart, we meant to tell you, it's only temporary. Ethan needed help, and families help each other. Temporary? My voice cracked. The account is empty. Lily's money, her future, is gone. It's a loan, he said, as if that explained everything. Ethan will pay it back when things stabilize. Don't make a fuss. It's still family money. In the background, I heard my mother's voice. Tell her not to dramatize. She always escalates things. My father sighed into the receiver. Claire, please. You don't want to embarrass us. Don't make this bigger than it is. I hung up before the rage inside me spilled into words I couldn't take back. My hands were numb, my skin icy. The room spun until I had to sit down. On the table beside my laptop was a folder of old emails. My grandmother had been old-fashioned, but in her final years she sent me occasional notes, always written with care. I scrolled through them, desperate for her voice, for some clarity. That's when I found it. An email with the subject line, "For Claire's eyes only." My stomach flipped as I opened it. She had written, "This fund is for Lily alone. My first granddaughter deserves a chance to choose her own life. No one, not even your parents, should touch it. Guard it, Claire. It is hers and hers only." The words blurred through my tears. My grandmother had known. She had seen what I had tried to ignore my whole life. That my parents would choose Ethan, no matter the cost, no matter the betrayal. She had written the truth plainly, and I had failed to protect it. I whispered aloud, maybe I'm too harsh. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm making this bigger than it is. The guilt wound itself around me like barbed wire. Hadn't my parents always said I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too bitter? Hadn't they laughed when I cried as a child, told me to toughen up, to stop making everything about me? I closed my laptop and pressed my palms over my face. Maybe I deserved this, I whispered into the silence. But the words wouldn't settle. Something gnawed at the edge of the truth, a splinter refusing to stay buried. I reopened the email, scanning the top, and then I saw it, a forwarding note. It hadn't just been sent to me. It had been forwarded months before my grandmother's death. The recipient line burned into my vision. Mother. I read it again, slower this time, my pulse pounding in my ears. My mother had read this email. She had known exactly what the fund was for, exactly what Grandma had intended. She hadn't been ignorant. She hadn't misunderstood. She had lied. The betrayal landed heavier than the empty account. It meant the theft wasn't just desperate, it was deliberate. It meant the erasure of me, of Lily, had been calculated long before Thanksgiving dinners and cropped photographs. My mother had taken my grandmother's last wish and buried it under a smile for the camera. I closed the laptop again, but the glow of the screen lingered behind my eyes, branding me with the truth I could no longer unsee. Upstairs, Lily stirred in her sleep, murmuring something about pie, her small voice breaking into the silence. I sat in the dark, tears drying stiff on my cheeks, and wondered how many more lies had been wrapped in the paper of family values. And I knew this wasn't just neglect. This was betrayal carved into tradition, cemented into the walls of the house I once called home. The truth sat in my chest like a weight, pressing until I could barely breathe. My grandmother had trusted me, but my mother had intercepted that trust and twisted it into silence. The live stream humiliation, the cropped photos, the inheritance theft. It all fit together like jagged pieces of a puzzle I had been too afraid to solve. I was the scapegoat, the family's dumping ground, the one who carried every flaw so that Ethan could shine. It was a role I had accepted for years without naming it, but now the name clanged in my head like a bell. Scapegoat. That was me. And scapegoats weren't chosen by accident. They were built. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out the old leather-bound journal my grandmother had left behind. I had never read it closely, afraid of what it might reveal, but that night I turned the brittle pages. Her handwriting ran steady, though her health had been failing. Claire is the strong one, though she doubts it. She has been made to feel small, but I see her. I know what they have done. Lily will need her mother's strength to survive what this family is capable of. I closed the book and stared into the dark. The weight shifted. Rage took its place. If it were you, if you knew your parents had erased your child's future, if they mocked you in front of strangers, if your grandmother's dying words had been ignored, would you stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you let the fire burn? The question echoed in my head as I began to collect the evidence. The video clip from the live stream where Ethan whispered his insult. The TikTok recording where I was nudged out of frame. Screenshots of the group chat memes. The email from my grandmother, forwarded to my mother. The journal pages. All of it, neatly compiled into a folder that I labeled Truth. But I knew evidence alone wouldn't shatter the golden facade my family wore. They had mastered the art of image, curating every smile, every caption, every public gesture. I needed a voice louder than mine, someone who could cut through the noise. That's when I remembered a YouTuber I had stumbled across months earlier, someone who specialized in exposing scams, family frauds, and hidden abuses. His videos were raw, factual, ruthless. People trusted him because he didn't sensationalize. He simply laid bare what others tried to bury. I drafted an email to him, fingers shaking as I typed. I explained what had happened, attached a few documents, and hit send before fear could stop me. The next morning, I woke to a reply. "This is serious. We should talk." My heart pounded, but before I could process it, another notification lit up my screen. A private message on Reddit from the same anonymous account that had first revealed the missing fund. "You're not crazy. I've known for a long time. Meet me." The profile picture was blank, the username meaningless. My first instinct was suspicion. What if this was another trap? But the phrasing, the timing, it felt deliberate, personal. Against my better judgment, I agreed to a video call. When the camera blinked on, I saw a familiar face. Gray hair pulled into a bun, eyes lined with fatigue but still sharp. Aunt Carol. For a moment, I couldn't speak. "It was you," I whispered. She nodded. "I've watched for years, Claire. Watched them tear you down, elevate Ethan, bury the truth. When your grandmother passed, I found her notes, her worries about what your parents would do. I thought you deserved to know. I didn't want you to think you were alone." The relief came in a rush, so strong it hurt. Someone had seen me. Someone had believed me. But Carol's expression shifted, her lips tightening. "There's more," she said softly. "Something I haven't told you yet." Her hesitation chilled me. I leaned closer to the screen. "What do you mean? What else is there?" She looked down, then back at me, eyes filled with something like guilt. "Your grandmother's will, the one you know about. It wasn't the only version." The call froze for a second, the silence stretching like a noose. My pulse hammered in my ears. "What are you saying?" I demanded. Carol exhaled. "You need to see it for yourself. I'll send the documents. Just be prepared. It changes everything." I stared at her image on the screen, a storm of fear and hope colliding inside me. What secret could even be left after everything already stolen? The files Aunt Carol sent me were sharper than any blade. Scanned pages of my grandmother's will, drafts and revisions, margins filled with her notes. In every version, one thing remained constant: Lily's name, underlined twice, circled once. For my first granddaughter, to protect her against the cruelty of favoritism. The language was plain. It left no room for interpretation. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I organized everything into a narrative. The video clip of Ethan whispering his insults on livestream, the family memes mocking me in the group chat, the inheritance records showing withdrawals into his failed company, the email forwarded to my mother, the journal entries, the alternate will. Every piece was a tile in the mosaic of truth. By dawn, I uploaded it all into a video. My face appeared on screen, pale but steady. I spoke clearly, without theatrics, letting the evidence do the work. "This," I said, "is what my family looks like behind the curtain." At the end, I added one sentence: "Silence is the soil where abuse grows." I won't be silent anymore. I hit publish. The video spread like wildfire. Within hours, the hashtag #DarJusticeForClaire trended on Twitter, then Instagram, then TikTok. Strangers stitched my footage with their own stories. Others offered legal resources. Some simply wrote, "I believe you." But with virality came backlash. By afternoon, my parents had released their own statement, polished and cold. "Our daughter has chosen to air private family matters online. Her claims are exaggerated, born of jealousy, and deeply hurtful." Ethan posted a smirking selfie captioned, "Some people can't handle other people's success." The comments under his post filled with laughing emojis. For a moment, doubt crept in again. What if people believed them? What if I became the villain in their story? Then Ethan made a mistake. Late at night, screenshots leaked. He had shared them himself, bragging in a private group chat that my parents had suggested the withdrawals. His exact words: "Mom and Dad said it was fine. They told me to take it. Claire will get over it like always." The internet seized on it instantly. My video had been emotional, but this was proof in Ethan's own voice. The hashtag surged again, joined by another. Scapegoat, no more. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages, some from strangers offering support, some from extended relatives choosing sides. My cousin Rachel texted, "We always knew they treated you differently. We just didn't want to get involved, but I'm with you now." Another cousin wrote the opposite. "You're tearing this family apart. You should be ashamed." The family split like glass under pressure. Old grievances resurfaced, whispered truths turned into shouted declarations. What had been buried under forced smiles and staged photos now spilled out for everyone to see. Meanwhile, my lawyer moved quickly. We filed a petition in court to transfer Lily's inheritance into the custody of an independent guardian. The evidence package, emails, statements, Ethan's leaked messages, was attached. The first hearing was scheduled within a week. I walked into the courthouse with my lawyer at my side, Aunt Carol behind me, and Lily's small hand squeezed inside mine. My parents sat across the aisle, Ethan lounging beside them like he was at a game instead of a courtroom. My mother's face was a mask of calm. My father's jaw was stone. When the judge called the case, I stood, my knees shaking but my voice clear. I spoke about my grandmother's intent, about the years of favoritism, about the theft dressed up as family sacrifice. My lawyer presented the documents, the video, the leaked chat. Ethan shifted in his seat, sweating. My parents' attorney argued I had misunderstood, that the money was borrowed with consent, that I was weaponizing grief. My mother dabbed her eyes with a tissue she didn't need, but the judge listened carefully. He asked questions. He pressed on inconsistencies. And for the first time, I saw cracks in my parents' facade. At the end of the hearing, he said, "There is enough evidence here to consider a transfer of guardianship. We will reconvene with further testimony." My chest filled with something I hadn't felt in years, hope. As we gathered our papers, the room shifted. A door opened at the back, footsteps echoing against the marble. A figure entered, tall, deliberate, carrying a folder under one arm. The bailiff announced his name, but I barely heard it. What I did hear was the murmuring in the courtroom, the way my mother stiffened, the way my father's hand twitched against the table. This person wasn't just another lawyer. He was someone who knew them, someone with more to say. I clutched Lily's hand tighter, my pulse hammering in my ears. The reckoning had only just begun. The man who entered the courtroom was older, his back slightly bent, but his presence steady. He introduced himself as Harold Whitman, an attorney who had once been my grandmother's closest friend. He held a folder that seemed to pulse with gravity. My parents stiffened when they saw him, their calm veneer faltering for the first time. Harold approached the judge and requested permission to present new documents. From the folder, he withdrew a will, similar to the one I already had, but expanded, annotated in my grandmother's handwriting. He read aloud. In addition to Lily's fund, I have concerns about prior insurance money allocated for my care. If anything should happen to me, this money must be used solely for Claire's daughter. I fear my son and daughter-in-law may attempt otherwise. The words cut through the courtroom like a blade. Gasps rippled among the relatives seated behind me. My father's jaw clenched, my mother's face drained of color. Harold added, "This was a supplemental will, notarized and dated. Your Honor, this shows a pattern of mismanagement, deception, and willful intent to divert funds from the rightful beneficiary." The judge examined the papers, his brows furrowed. "This changes the matter substantially," he said. "If these documents are authenticated, the case for transferring guardianship becomes undeniable." I turned my head slightly, catching my mother's eyes. She didn't look angry now. She looked cornered. For decades, she had ruled me through silence and shame, but under the fluorescent courtroom lights, stripped of her mask, she seemed small. The hearing adjourned with an order for forensic review of the documents, but the damage to my parents' reputation was already done. By evening, the courtroom sketches, transcripts, and leaked testimonies had gone viral. The narrative was no longer jealous daughter versus perfect family. It was betrayed daughter versus family fraud. So, my phone exploded with messages again. Some asked if I would forgive them. Others urged me never to look back. If it were you, if your parents had stolen not once but twice from the child you swore to protect, would you forgive or would you cut them out forever? Weeks passed as the legal machinery turned. In the end, the judge issued his ruling. The fund was to be removed from my parents' control and placed under a neutral financial guardian. Ethan's withdrawals were documented as misuse. The supplemental will was upheld. I walked out of the courthouse with Lily clutching my hand. She didn't fully understand, but she smiled when I told her, "Your future is safe now." For the first time in years, I felt the ground beneath me steady. But winning in court wasn't the same as healing. The holidays loomed, hollow without the rituals I had once pretended to enjoy. So I decided to build something new. That November, I hosted what I called Thanksgiving of Strays. I invited neighbors with nowhere to go, single parents from Lily's school, friends who had been cut out of their own families for being too different, too loud, too honest. The table stretched with mismatched chairs, casseroles of every flavor, laughter that came from the belly instead of obligation. Lily beamed as she passed rolls to an elderly man who had shown up with nothing but an apple pie and a story about a wife who had once loved to bake. For the first time, I felt what Thanksgiving was supposed to mean. Near the end of the night, Aunt Carol pulled me aside. Her hands trembled as she pressed a small book into mine. The leather was cracked, the pages worn. "Your grandmother wanted you to have this too," she said softly. I opened it. Inside were pages filled with my grandmother's looping script. Some were recipes, some prayers, some memories of her childhood. But the last page carried a single sentence. "Your freedom begins the moment you dare to leave the table that never made room for you." The words burned into me, not with pain this time, but with clarity. I had spent my life begging for a seat, fighting for scraps of love, shrinking to fit their table. Now I had built my own. I closed the book and held it to my chest. Tears slipped down my face, but they weren't bitter. They were release. I looked around the room at my chosen family, the misfits, the overlooked, the broken who had glued themselves back together. Lily giggled with 2 other children, her cheeks flushed with joy. For once, I didn't feel erased. I didn't feel like a scapegoat. I felt like myself. And I knew this wasn't just the end of a fight. It was the beginning of a life where my worth was not decided by people who had chosen to betray me. It was the life my grandmother had wanted for me all along.